Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 14 of Death Note. Oh, man, Misa, and Light, now a unofficial official duo as he poses as her boyfriend. Oh my god, and she helps him to track down L. I'm really nervous for L. I really am, because I don't know how L's talking his way out of this, because Misa seems pretty swooning over Light. She seems pretty smitten. So I'm like, I just don't see how L is going to talk his way out of her trying to kill him. So I don't know. I'm kind of at a point where I don't know what to expect out of this episode. I have no clue what's coming. I'm like, I do have some comments though before we do start, so I want to address those. For the record, on the Discord, we were just having a conversation about the relationships, and this is an Attack on Titan Season 4 spoiler, so I'm going to put this little graphic up here for a second, and then when it's gone, Attack on Titan Season 4 spoiler will be over. But a lot of people were comparing Misa to Yelena from Season 4, and I was like, oh, that comparison's really great, because Yelena in that series is like all about Zeke. She's like worships him and wants to do whatever she can to help him, and that seems like Misa and Light. So there was this big comparison between Yelena and Misa and Zeke and Light, who kind of have these like god complexes, the soul salvation of humanity complexes, right? Which I think is amazing. And then I was like, so does that mean that L's Levi? And they both like tea, and they both kind of look similar. So I was like, oh my gosh, and their personalities are kind of similar. So yeah, the comparisons are there, right? Maybe Isayama took a little bit of inspiration from L in creating Levi. I don't know, maybe. But that's the end of the Attack on Titan spoilers. I just thought that'd be fun to mention. But speaking of characters that look like characters, Summer commented how Misa in her costume in episode 12 in episode 13 looks a lot like the girl that was crushing on Elle in the tennis match. And I was like, oh yeah. So it does. She does look like her. She has like the black hair and then the glasses. And I was like, oh wow, that does exactly look like the girl that was crushing on Elle. Funny that that's happened. Also, Caitlin noted that we were talking about sexuality and how I view Light and Elle kind of as asexual. They're clearly not romantically. I like to make jokes that they're in a BL together because it's kind of that Sherlock Moriarty dynamic, but I don't really think that they're sexually attracted to one another. And Caitlin made a note that the creator actually came out and said that Elle is asexual. And I'm like, no, makes total sense. I can't see Elle being romantically involved with anybody. It's like, no. So I think that's pretty cool. I like that. Jake Collins talked about how Misa could have found out about Kira online. She doesn't necessarily have to be from the Kanto region. And I was like, oh, that's good. And she pointed out in the last episode that she's from the Kansai region. So that all makes sense, that she could have gotten online like anybody and seen the presence of Kira and put two and two together that he's the one responsible for murdering the burglar that attacked her parents. I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So thank you, Jake. And then Alexander Q noted that how Light does not fit his family. It's like one of these things is not like the other. You have Sachiro, you have Sachiko, Soichiro, and Seiyu. But anyway, you have those like alliterated names, and then you have Light, who doesn't fit. So that's curious. And then finally, Alex Cornejo commented saying that the author kind of, after killing off Naomi early on, realizing that her character had gotten out of hand and that she was going to kind of outdo Light and Elle, maybe backtracked in the creation of Misa, saying, okay, let's make a character who is not crazy smart like Naomi and perceptive and would be able to outshine Elle and Light. Let's make a character who's kind of the opposite of Naomi, because Misa's kind of the opposite of Naomi, right? So I think that's really interesting. And maybe, as Alex Cornejo notes, the author is trying to convince themselves that there won't be a repeat of what happened with Naomi. And I'm like, oh, that's fun. I like that a lot. But yeah, so I'm really excited for this episode to see what all happens with it and to see how Light plans on using Misa, how they're going to go about it. The fun thing is, the good thing is it's going to be exciting to see like how these two play off of each other and what type of dynamic they create, and how is Light going to be able to control Misa like he thinks he will? I don't know. She's kind of a wild card. I'm like, I don't know. Or is Misa going to do things her own way? The scary thing is I just feel really scared for Matsuda and really scared for Elle, because I feel those two have the big death flags on them. And I'm like, we're only on episode 14. We're not near the halfway point yet. I'm like, we still have so much story to go. But I'm like, I am worried for Elle. I'm like, how's this going to work? So yeah, We'll see, right? But I haven't looked at episode 13, just came out on Patreon, episode 12 on YouTube. I haven't looked at all the comments yet. I'll probably look at those comments and carry them over into episode 15. But I wanted to record ahead because I'm like, I just need to know. After that last episode ended, I was like, I gotta know what's gonna happen with our guys. So let's find out, shall we? We are gonna start episode 14 of Death Note and just see what happens. And we're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I get off an adrenaline high every time this series ends an episode, but this one, you know, back in episode 7, you think back like half of these episodes ago, back at the end of it, I was thinking about this when I started this second part, the post discussion of the reaction up. I was like, okay, back in episode 7, Light ended the episode with killing Naomi and being heartless and cold with no emotion whatsoever, and was glad to kill off a character that was close to figuring out who he was. And in this, the episode was called Friend, and it slipped past me, right? I spent the whole episode forgetting the title of this episode. I was just like so enthralled by what was happening with Misa that I completely forgot about the title of this episode, so that when Elle drops, he's like, well, you're my first friend. I was like, oh. So we go from Light killing Naomi in cold blood and caring nothing about her whatsoever, just happy that he had rid himself of someone that was a threat, to him possibly not wanting Elle to die yet, because that's it. It's over, right? And we'll talk about this in this episode and what it means for Light, but his face at the end when Rim's like, I'll do it. I value Misa more than anybody, so yeah, if it makes her happy, I'll do it for her. And Light realizing that she would do it. His face. We'll go back there, but he looked heartbroken. I was like, oh my God, this episode. Is this possibly my new favorite? It might be. I just want to gush about this episode because it's so, God, this episode's so good. And this series just gets better and better. But, so we need to talk about this episode. We need to talk about it because it's absolutely amazing. Like everything at work here. Oh my God. So, oh my God. We as we go through this, okay, we need to again tie these characters together, right? And I'm gonna pick a couple extra ones here to tie them together with them. So, okay, we'll get our sunset colors out here. So I'm going to put over here in red, go put old Light Yagami over here in red. And beside him over here is going to be Ryuk. Gotta have old Ryuk over here. Ryuk, who seems like he kind of knows Rim, but he doesn't really care. He's like, oh, you're a Shinigami. Which, that's the thing. There's so many Shinigami in this world. They may not know each other, right? They may not know each other. So Ryuk's just like, oh, yeah, you're a Shinigami. It's funny that you like this girl. So then I'm going to have Misa over here. She's a card. I love her. And then over here I'm going to put Rim. Rim gets to go over here in her special corner. And then L, because he gets blue, L, a.k.a. Ryuzaki, gets to go over here. All right. Cool. So we've got our characters. We're going to talk about them in this episode. The story primarily comes across all of them. Man, this series, what you think is going to happen, and it plays to all the characters and their strengths and how they are. But Friend. Oh my God, the last 5 minutes of this damn episode, I'm still reeling from it. I got chills. And we're going to talk about like the music choices, all of that. I'm so excited to talk about this episode. Okay, so yeah, Light putting on the facade, right? Putting on the act. Being like, I can't be your boyfriend, but I can play the part. I can pretend. And she's like, I'll work hard to make you love me. So it's like, in one ear, out the other. She's like, nope, I'm gonna get you to love me. The Dream Girls soundtrack is going on. I can't get over the Light's facial expressions I may just put in the Discord all the facial expressions, but Light being so, he's getting caught up in all of this. But remember when things were simple and he was just writing names in a death note? Remember when things were simple in this series? Because that's how far we've come. He was just writing down names of criminals in a notebook and there was nothing to it. And now Light is getting swept up in all of this. It's like, it's one thing for him and Elle to be going at each other like a cat and mouse, like Sherlock Moriarty. That's one thing. And that was complicated enough in itself. But not only is Light now involving Misa, but he's trying to control Misa. He's trying to predict what Misa's going to do. He's trying to like monitor her actions and influence them on top of everything else. And Misa's such a chaotic character that that's very difficult to do. And she has all this baggage with her that it didn't click to me until this episode. I'm like, oh shit, she is a piece of dynamite that has just been dropped into his house and she could blow up in his face at any moment. Oh my gosh, but that expression where he just looks so evil and he is convinced, he's like, I'll have her meet Elle and find out his name and then eliminate the entire task force at HQ. Which, that line there, I was like, Light, your dad's on that task force. So are you really going to eliminate all of them, including your dad? I don't think so. I think he's going to spare his dad. But, So his plan initially is to use Misa, but how he phrased it, he said to learn Elle's name and eliminate task force. He didn't say outright to kill him. He just said to learn his name, which we know that Light's intention is to kill Elle at this point, right? And saying, I'll kill her afterwards. And so then he's like, then I'll kill Misa. The great thing about this is I don't know anybody that ships Light and Misa. I don't know how you can at this point because Light hates her. He dislikes her so much. He contemplates hitting her. He says this is the first time I've wanted to hit a woman before. I was like, shit. He contemplates like assaulting her because, I mean, he doesn't really, and I know the comments are gonna be like, he wasn't really gonna hit her. I'm like, but he thought about it. The point is he hates her. He does not like Misa at all. She is just a liability, but she is a necessary evil for him right now. But it's hilarious. I'm like, I don't know anybody that could ship them at this point. Maybe that'll change by the end of the series, but right now I'm like, no, he hates her. No, Elle's a better person with him than him. He says, that's all right. She's the only person who knows Kira's identity. And she did say herself that she would die for him, but he says, I can't let her live for long. So it's like, he's just, Light puts on this facade of caring about people, but up until the last 2 seconds of this episode, he really didn't care about anybody. And then suddenly, oh, you mean Elle's gonna die so easily? Light's like, oh wait, I can't have it all? Because Elle's been the only challenge she's gotten so far. I mean, Misa is a challenge, but she's an annoyance to him. He doesn't consider her a challenge, he considers her an obstacle. She's not something, he can't play chess, which is funny we mentioned chess because she talks about him being her knight, interestingly enough. But he's like, Misa's not competition for him. She's just a liability. But Elle is his Sherlock to his Moriarty. It's, his Sunday to his strawberry. So he's not competition. He's what makes this whole thing interesting, right? Somebody to match his intelligence. And Misa is not that. So she's like, so you'll just act like my boyfriend, huh? That's a good start. Misa thinks that Light will come around. Misa's like, okay, you can start by pretending to be my boyfriend. She's like, it's a start. Yeah, she's wholly convinced that by the end of this, he's gonna fall in love with her. Again, Misa is so complicated because there's a little part of me that thinks that Misa eventually, like, she's yandere. There's a part of me that's like, thinks she eventually wants to kill Light, or we'll talk about this with Light, the concept of a Shinigami. We'll talk about that with him, that she wants him to die. She wants him to, like, sacrifice himself for her, just like Jealous did. That's why I think there's no better way to kill. Or, maybe for her, that would be Rim's way. Because that's interesting. We'll talk about that when we get to Rim. There's so much going on in this episode. My mind is like going a mile a minute. And she's like, can you show me your Shinigami? And he's like, oh. He's like, I suppose it's necessary to make her trust me. At that point, I was like, again, I'm kind of suspicious of Misa. I'm like, is she really? Like, there's a little part of me that finds her suspicious. And the fact that she instantly wants to see a Shinigami. But he's like, can you turn around? And he doesn't want her to know that he has little pieces of the Death Note in his wallet. He doesn't want her to know that. He's like, and of course, she's not really fazed. Ryuk probably looks like one of her stuffed animals, so I'm surprised she didn't go, oh, kawaii. I'm surprised she didn't say something like that. He's like, oh, hi. She's like, oh, he's completely different from Rim, isn't he? And she's like, I already know your name. It's Ryuk. Pleased to meet you. And he's like, oh, happy. And oh, God, every expression from him in this episode, I want to take a screenshot of it because he's just so... That's so condescending in that moment where he's just looking away. He's like, oh, God, come on. Just Light, your ego. Oh, my God. She's like, oh, do you know how to kill a Shinigami? And at first I was like, is she actually going to tell him? But she does. And he's like, oh, you're already calling me by my first name? She's like, well, shall I call you Knight instead? Because you're like Misa's knight in shining armor. And he's like, Light is fine. She is convinced. I like that she says that Light is her knight in shining armor. She's come to his rescue and to protect her, which is the furthest thing from what's happening. It's funny. It's like, Light's a pretty good actor because I'm like, Misa, he does not care about you at all. He's just keeping you alive until you kill L. So then there's this. He's like, do you plan on checking all the tapes by yourself? And he's like, yes. Poor L. It's very likely that Kira and the second Kira made contact with each other the other day. And he's like, I want to check them all and see. And Mr. Yagami, he says, okay, I'd like Mr. Mogi to keep watch over Light's activities. So Mr. Mogi, I'm assuming that's the guy that's following them, right? Okay. So he says Mr. Mogi is to keep track of Light's activities. I'm assuming that's the guy that's been following him around and seeing that Light has a bunch of girlfriends right now. I bet that's it. I wonder if he noticed Misa in the tapes. And the only reason I say that is because she was in disguise, so you wouldn't know that she looks like the blonde Misa that we know right now. She had the wig and the glasses on, but right after Matsuda and L and Light walked past the coffee shop, she left. So I don't know. That's a really big stretch to think that L would notice her leaving the coffee shop right after Light and Matsuda walked by. But it's L. So if L, who's super suspicious and leaves no stone unturned, noticed that somebody was leaving immediately afterwards, maybe he made note of that. I don't know. At this point, we're not sure, right? He hasn't given away if he's noticed anything, correct? He's just watched these tapes over and over again. He's like, in the event that Light is Kira, the second Kira might try to contact him. Like L knows everything is going to happen. He predicts all of it. He knows it's all going down. It's just he doesn't have any way to prove it. It's just all of his hunches, and his hunches are correct. It's like, oh my God. So they ask when he sleeps, and they're like, well, he's sleeping in that same position the other day. So does L sleep? We don't know. We assumed at least for a little bit, but he's like all like just staring at that screen, obsessed. And he just eats the popsicle. Also, the fact that he eats the popsicle, what a monster. Like, I can't. You lick that stuff. You don't bite into a popsicle. No. Oh, God. So, anyway, the tea never gets up to Light and Misa, by the way. So when a Shinigami has feelings for someone and kills someone in order to extend that person's life, then the Shinigami dies. I like that Light says when a Shinigami develops feelings for someone, he doesn't say love. He says feelings because Light is a sociopath and doesn't understand love. At least not yet. So I'm like, okay, So yeah, so he says develop feelings, and so he goes over how. And Ryuk's just sitting there like, huh, who knew? And then I like that he chuckles, says, I can't imagine there's a Shinigami who would do that. And he's like, that's right. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that you would do. You're not sacrificing yourself for me, Ryuk. Funny that. And Ryuk's like, hell no. And so then he changes the subject. But that's the funny thing. I don't think that Light knows about jealous, because when Ryuk says, I can't imagine a Shinigami that would do that, Rim and Misa did not mention jealous then. That means they kept that part of the conversation out. So that's the thing. They've kept that part of the convo out. So they don't know. About jealous. They have not shared that information that it's his death note, or at least we, the audience, don't think that they have. And so he asks her about where she sent the tapes from, and she says that she sent them from these various locations. And he's like, I want you to dispose of everything used to create the tapes. And he starts to go through his plan about sending the final video and what to say through it. And so I was curious to see how Misa would respond to this, because Misa now is getting an up-close understanding firsthand of how Kira works, right? Because she's had this idealized thought in her mind of how Kira functions, and now she's getting to like pull back the curtain and see what happens, like see how the sausage is made, right? So she's getting to see firsthand the kind of plotting that Light does as Kira. And I was waiting for her to kind of call it out and be like, aren't we supposed to be killing criminals? Like I was waiting for her to like say something throughout all this. She hasn't yet. I'm curious to see, because Light's been fixated on L this entire time, and say, I'm going to help Kira and gain his acceptance. And so he gives her all the information to say in the video, saying, I'll begin by punishing criminals that Kira hasn't punished, and I plan to make this world a better place. And just like he's thinking it, like him stroking his chin and thinking out loud, being like, yes, tell them that I plan to make the world a better place. Like it's not even his goal anymore, right? The way that he says it is, it almost, and I know that we could argue that he is still striving for that. He's just thinking of what to say in the video. But the way that it's presented in this episode, it almost reads like that's not even his goal anymore. It's just to, right now, it's to get rid of the task force, to get rid of L, and to get rid of Misa. That's literally his goals right now. And then, oh yeah, I'm going to kill these criminals along the way. Yeah, we'll get back to it. But really, he's kind of veered off course from where he started at back in episode 1. Like Light has veered away from where he started from, and he's gotten kind of caught up in all this, right? It's just getting more and more complicated. And so then he says, by sharing this power among those who are worthy. And she's like, share the power. And he's like, it's a line to throw off the investigation. There are already 2 people with this power, so why wouldn't they think that there was more? I got a little nervous when he said that, because I'm like, Misa's a wild card, and if she takes that even the slightest the wrong way, then what if she decides to share that power with someone else? I'm like, oh God, ugh. Oh no. Kind of like with Ray Pinbar. We've seen that Ray can use the Death Note, but it doesn't make the Death Note his. So theoretically, if Misa by chance did have pages of the Death Note saved back that she did rip out, I don't think she did, but if she had, she could give them to someone else to use, and that would make them aware of the Death Note and able to use it. So that line there, even though it's just a trick to lead the investigation off trail, it still is out there now. And so I'm thinking, I'm like, Misa is such a wild card character. I'm like, I don't want to think of how she could use that against Light. I don't know. This is all going to blow up in Light's face. It's too... Light is doing the best he can to keep it all together, but I'm like, by the end of this episode, I'm like, oh, things are about to get so murky. I'm like, I don't know. So yeah. Anyway, he's like, they'll believe that the power can multiply and it'll create a panic. And she's like, and she doesn't question him. I felt at this point that Misa would question him and be like, how does this really relate to what we're doing with Kira? Isn't he supposed to be stopping bad guys like the ones that killed my parents? I figured she'd go back to that, but she's so head over heels for him, she doesn't question it. So she says, you don't have to ask, just order me. Just order me to do your work. She's like, I'll do whatever you ask me to. Oh, but she has conditions, which is interesting. And I will get into this. She's like, I'll do whatever you say. And he's like, one more important thing. And she's like, okay. He says, if you're caught by the police, if you're arrested as a suspect, don't say anything about us or the notebook. And he looks away as he says this. He's like, don't mention us or the notebook if it happens. There's no proof against you as long as they don't get a hold of the notebook and verify it. He's like, can you do that? And she's like, promise, Scout's honor. I will not mention the death note if I get caught. Seems legit. Which also makes me think like, okay, if she gets caught, she says she won't reveal anything about Light or the death note, but she could still get caught. I'm like, are they setting her up to get caught in the future? And she just doesn't reveal the thing about the notebook or about Light, but she talks about other things? She's so wild. I don't know what to do with her, right? I'm kind of like in the position Light is. It's like, what do you do with you? She says, so we're officially boyfriend and girlfriend, right? He's like, I guess so. So that's all she wanted. And she's like, well, I guess so, since, I mean, I told you I was going to pretend. Again, she did not pay attention. He's like, I said we'd pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend, but we're not really, but okay. And she says, now for my conditions. And he's like, I don't like that. She says, go on a date with me at least once a week. And then just, his face, it's like he's getting an aneurysm. Just, Light is like, my brain can't process. He's like, she really doesn't get it. And he's like, that's impossible. And she's like, but why? And he's like, because it doesn't seem like you understand unless I tell you. I was like, oh my God. So she still wants Light as a real boyfriend. Not pretend, but real. And Light's like, no, what part of this is not making sense? He's like, Elle suspects that I'm Kira. And she's like, oh, what? Elle's pretty amazing. So yeah, this part here. She says, Elle's pretty amazing. Everyone's saying that. He doesn't understand or that he's stupid. So he's actually figured out that much. Oh, so yeah, Light's like, well, he's not as good as me, but. So she has heard of Elle. Okay. She has heard of Elle beyond just what Light has told her. Okay. So she has heard word on the street. And he says, thanks to that, I've been able to get close to Elle. Okay. And so from then on, she's like, oh, you mean you guys have contacted each other? But here's the thing. I'm sure Misa's thinking, she doesn't come out and say it, but I'm sure she's thinking, she's like, you guys have contacted each other, but you didn't kill him yet. And it's because he doesn't know the name, right? And she's like, you're both amazing. It makes me kind of excited. So if she thinks they're both amazing, maybe if Misa meets Elle, she'll develop a crush on him too. That would be great. That means maybe he'll live. I cannot see Ryuzaki. One, Ryuzaki would not pretend to be anybody's boyfriend. I feel like he's very different from Light in that regard. He's like, I don't want to act like somebody's boyfriend. No. Like, Elle, that's not the way Elle works. But if he ever met Misa, I feel like Elle and Misa would get along. That's the thing. I feel like not really on like an intellectual level, but I feel like they could bond over sweets. Like they could share coffee and sweets and then bond, and he'd be like, well, you're kind of dumb, but let's be friends. I want Elle to have friends. Can him and Misa be friends? Misa, Elle may be better for you than Light. At least, even if Elle is asexual, at least he'll be your friend and not want to kill you. Oh my God. And she's like, I'm excited. And he's like, even if I'm Kira. I love that Light, Misa's over here being like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. I think you both are amazing. And he's like, even if he knows, Light's like, stay on track. He's like, Elle thinks he's safe as long as he hides his name. And he came out and told me directly that he was Elle in order to investigate me. Like that moment has stuck with Light since that episode. Like it has stuck with him, right? Since Encounter. But he's only positive because there isn't anyone else who could possibly be Kira. That's interesting to note that Light, man, the ego on our boy. He's like, Elle only suspects me because I'm the only one who could be him. That's so egotistical. Light's like, the only reason that Elle suspects me is because I'm the only one that's smart enough to be Kira. But yeah, no one else could possibly be Kira. And she's like, oh, and he's like, if I play it right, he'll trust me and we'll investigate together. Together. Oh, Light, you don't realize you've made a friend, and you're just now realizing you've made a friend. Maybe. Oh, I want him to realize that. And she's like, oh, so all you have to do is take me where Elle is, right? And he's like, it's not that simple. It was difficult enough for me to get close to him. Yeah, Light's like, I had to go through all these hoops just to even meet Elle. There's no way I can bring around some stranger. That will be far too suspicious, right? So he's like, besides, if suddenly someone close to me steps into the picture and the actions of Kira and the second Kira change, then I'm going to be suspected. Like, it's going to be obvious that we're working together, and I'll end up casting more suspicious on myself. And he says, it would be bad if we get together. And he makes the connection that we're intimate. The fact that Light used the word intimate is kind of, it feels creepy coming out of Light. I'm like, Light, you shouldn't say the word intimate, because Light doesn't understand what the word intimate means. I feel like his definition of intimate is very clinical, because he's not into people like that. He's like, do you understand what I'm trying to say? And she's like, kind of. So does that mean we can't go on dates? I just love it. It's like, we can't meet in public because you're afraid that he'll suspect you more. And he's like, no, we should take some time to think of a plan so that you can see Elle without him knowing about you. So he's like, look, it's not about the fact that we're together or not. He's like, we've got to think of a way for you to get close to him without Elle being suspicious. And if we start going out on dates, you're going to be suspicious, and that's not going to happen. And we won't be able to do what we set out to. So, I mean, Light makes perfect sense there. And she goes, okay, yeah. He's like, I need you in order to eliminate Elle. And she looks so innocent there, like, okay. Like, okay. I want you to be able to keep in direct contact with you. And she's like, oh, thank goodness. She's like, I didn't want you to, like, scurry me away. That wouldn't be good. And he's like, so, in order to make sure that our meetings don't stand out, I'm going to see other girls. I was like, Light, oh, honey, you know, some of the stuff he says goes in one ear and out the other with Misa, but I'm like, oh, Light, you have no clue how this girl works. She is a stage 5 clinger. You have no clue what you've signed up for. I was like, oh, honey, you can't just tell a girl that. It's very clear Light has not been in a relationship with a woman, or in the capacity where he understands what is entailed with a relationship. Like, even if it wasn't a woman, if anytime you're in a relationship with anybody, you can't just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to also see other people, unless that's something you're into. And if you and your partner are like in a polyamorous relationship, then go for it. But I'm just like, oh, Light, no, you can't just say that. No. So when he's like, he says to not be noticed, I'm going to date other girls. And Misa's like, no, you're not. That's one of her conditions. He's like, what do you mean by that? You mean you're going to date other girls? And he said, well, yeah, pretty much. And she's like, no. And he's like, what? What? What is this? She's like, if I see you with another girl, I'll kill her. And Ryuk's like, yeah, scary, right? And he's like, now listen, Misa, sweetie. Intimate should never be a word that Light uses, and sweetie should never be a word that Light uses. Although he said Misa-chan. And Ryuk was like, Chan, huh? And he's like, this isn't a game. We're both risking our lives to change the world, aren't we? And she's like, well, yeah, but I love you more than the world. Misa's like, no, I've fallen in love. Which Light's like, wait a minute. She's like, she has fallen in love with Light. And it's that whole love at first sight. Which Light does not believe in. He's like, no. She's like, I love you more than the world. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I thought your feelings towards me were just as an admirer. And she's like, well, yeah. He's like, besides, this is the first time we've met. She's like, I kind of grew up watching Disney movies. She's like, have you ever experienced love at first sight? And he says, never. She says, well, yeah, I wanted to meet Kira out of gratitude and approval, not out of love. But when I first laid my eyes on you, and he's like, what is with this girl? Oh no, Light! So Light, Never, never love at first sight. I mean, it makes sense. When he first met Elle, he was disguised as Lind L. Taylor, and it wasn't love at first sight either. Oh, I kid. And Ryuk's like, wow, you're Mr. Popular, huh? It's like Ryuk is just chiding at Light, being like, weren't you Mr. Popular? Aren't you used to girls falling at your feet? Didn't you say that? Like, God, I love Ryuk. He's like, if you love me, you'll obey me. I'm like, that's not how love works. I'm like, oh, Light, no. So he's like tying love to obedience and loyalty is what he's tying it with Mikasa. Being like, if you love me, you'll do everything I say without question. Like, there's no compromise. Not with Light. He's like, you told me before that you didn't mind being used, and you insisted that you do as I say. And she's like, but I won't allow you to date other girls. It's like, that's where I draw the line. Those are two different things. She's like, me doing whatever you ask me to is different than you going and being with other women, which is kind of true. She's like, yeah, no, I'll do whatever you say. But if I'm doing what you say, you can't see other women. Like, that's the compromise, right? She's like, I'll do whatever you say, but you're mine alone. That's the point that she's making. And Light's like, he's just like, I love that he gets in her face. He's like, I have both notebooks. And he's like, if you won't obey me, I'll kill you. I'm like, whoa, Light. You just, and I love that he has his hand on his hip. He's got his hand on his hip, and he's like, if you don't do what I say, I'm like, is Light gay? So I'm like, he does not, oh God, not interested at all in any of the women he's been in contact with. And it's not the pose that makes him that way. It's just the fact of how he's treated Misa, how he treats the lady in the class with him, and then his reaction to Elle. I'm like, oh no, Light. I don't really think Light is gay at this point. I do think he's like aromantic, has no concept of love or romance at all. But this line where he's like, if you won't obey me, then I'll kill you. And that's when Rim's like, oh, bitch, no. I love this part where Rim is like, no, if you try to kill her, I'll write your name in my notebook. Rim's like, don't even. Like, that's enough. Like, and kill you. And it's for the first time in this series, Light really looks, like this episode in particular is the first time we really see Light look incredibly, truly afraid and panicked and sad. I'm like, what are these emotions? But yeah, he looked actually intimidated by Rim. Rim's like, I can see her lifespan. And if I see that it wavers, if she dies before that date, I'll assume that you killed her. Okay, so this is interesting. We have on here, she has 1,542,306. And Light has 938,263. Or no, there's like 9. Yeah, it's just like there's little bits there, right? Okay. Interesting. It'd be cool to go back in the previous episode and see how that number's changed since what it was before. But she still has more lifespan than Light does, doesn't she? Interesting. Okay. All right. Or maybe not. No, I think she does. She either has the same amount or more. I don't know. He's like, wouldn't you die if you use your notebook to save her? And then, yeah, Light's like, but you'll die if you do that. And she's like, I don't care. And she's like, you'll die, Rim. And so Rim says, that's true, I would. But I don't care. She's like, I don't like you. Like, Rim knows what's up. Rim does not like Light. And you know what? I don't blame her. Because here's the thing. The way that Light is treating Misa in this moment is that it's like Light is treating Misa like that fanatic treated her that tried to kill her back when we saw Back in Love in episode 12. Because in that flashback, the guy was like, I love you, and if you won't love me, then I'll kill you and kill myself. And Light is basically saying, well, if I love you and if you love me, then do as I say, and if you don't, then I'll kill you. It's kind of the same vibe in a way, right? Only Light doesn't love Misa like that fanatic did. And so Rim's like, no, my Shinigami comrade died to save her, and you're being an asshole. So if you're gonna threaten her, then I'm gonna threaten you, right? So she threatens to kill Light if he kills her. Even though Misa tells her afterwards, she's like, oh, don't kill Light. And it's like, But Light doesn't know that. She's like, I don't care. And Light's like, oh, shit. Is this Shinigami serious? Then that means from now on, I can't threaten Misa. And like, what a tension cutter. Like, just cut the tension right in half, like the mom showing up and being like, hey, Light, it's 11:30. It's time for her to go home. You never came down and got your tea. It's not nice to have a girl stay out so late. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're right. We ended up having a long conversation. Sorry, Mrs. Yagami. And then my favorite thing is she's like, I'm sorry for saying so late. She's like, see you later. And he's like, yeah. And the mom's like, walk your girlfriend to the station. And Light's like, I don't want to be seen with her. God, the dynamics in this episode are amazing. I love this so much. It won't be good to walk outside with her now. And she kind of, to Misa's credit, Misa, she goes, it's good. I can walk back by myself. And the thing that freaks me out about this scene is that what Light doesn't know, and I don't think Light would care even if he did know, but what he doesn't know is that her walking back home by herself is what is what nearly got her killed in the first place. That's the scary thing. And she doesn't have a death note now. Light has it. So she is walking back all by. If I was her and I had a near-death experience walking by myself to the train station, like hell I'd walk by myself again, or I'd at least, knowing that there was an option, want that person to walk with me. Misa, girl, she is so dedicated to him. But here's the thing. She has Rim with her now. So I feel like she has a little bit of safety because Rim can be her eyes as well and look out for her and say, hey, somebody's coming, let's go. And so Rim is kind of there as a protection layer. But but Light doesn't know that history with her, right? To our knowledge, Light doesn't understand that she nearly died because of a situation like that. The problem is, I don't think Light would have cared either way. He still would have sent her off by herself. And everybody's like, oh, she's so cute. Yeah, she kind of is, a lot at first, but she's really cute. I like the mom and sister are like, good job, Light. And Light's like, they're like, I like her. And all Light can think about is that Shinigami's going to kill me if I kill the girl. The girl, not Misa, the girl. Does that mean I have to deal with her until she dies? Yes. Yes, you've signed up. He's like, not just that, but I'm forced to protect her so she doesn't get caught by the police. Oh my God. I love it. Like, she's just become a thorn in his side. It's like, what did you expect? It's quite a different vibe from when he was like creepily hugging her and like smiling evilly, right? And she's like, thanks to you, Light really became my knight. She's like, so it seems. And then she's like, but don't kill him for real, okay? So the whole thing about her knight, it just makes me think that like Misa's playing a chess game like all of them are. She's just maybe not as smart about it. I wonder what L would be on her chessboard. I feel like he'd be the bishop, maybe. He's not the king. I don't think he's a rook. Chief Yagami or Matsuda seems like a rook, but I feel like he's like the bishop because they have some sneaky moves too. Or maybe he's a knight as well. You have to have a black knight and a white knight, so maybe there you go. He's the Dark Knight. L is the Dark Knight, and Light is the White Knight. No, it's perfect, right? Light wants to present himself as being like the wholesome, like angelic kid. He's the White Knight, and then L is the Dark Knight. Yeah, oh God, no, it's the Batman memes continue. All right, so we have our halfway point note saying suicide is a valid cause of death. Basically, all humans are thought to possess the possibility to commit suicide. It is therefore something not unbelievable to think of. That's really dark. It's really dark, suggesting that everybody has the capacity for suicide. I mean, it's true, but that's super dark, right? So telling somebody to commit suicide isn't unheard of. And the second one for this episode says, whether the cause of an individual's death is either a suicide or an accident, if the death leads to the death of more than the intended, the person will simply die of a heart attack. This is to ensure that other lives are not influenced. Oh, okay. So if their suicide somehow will lead to the injury or death of someone else, as it's written down, then it will instantly become a heart attack. Or if the accident leads to the death of someone else, then it'll become a heart attack. So basically, back in the episode with the guy on the bus with Ray and Light and the one girl, if that car accident had resulted in the driver being injured or dying, then that guy would just have died of a heart attack. It wouldn't have happened. Okay. That's interesting. So you can't use the death note to inadvertently kill more than just the person you wrote down. Good to know. Interesting. Okay. So then I like that the Google equivalent in this world is gentle. It's the same font. So Light's back in his room. He says, in order to kill a Shinigami, that Shinigami has to use the death note to save a human's life that has fallen in love with. Okay. And so he uses gentle, I can't kill Rim by using the death note to control someone to attack Misa. If Misa's put in danger, I'll be suspected and killed. Right now, she's an even bigger nuisance than Elle is. Yeah, oh my god. So, Light views Misa as more of a hassle than Elle. That cracks me up so much that he's like, I'd rather deal with Elle than her. And so then he looks up Misa, and I freaking love it. He's like, she's a model. He's like, no, she does something this conspicuous. Like, her profile is everywhere, and she has her own name and everything, Misa Amani. Like, she was so easy to look up. Oh my god. He's like, no! He's like, what'll happen if it's discovered that I met up with someone like this? Yeah, he's like, this is too high profile. And she has like the pictures, all the pictures from the previous episode. He's like, damn it, she's in the way no matter how I think about it. Because yeah, she's a model. So she's a model. Her info is everywhere. Yup. So not only does Light have to protect her from the police and keep them from being noticed together conspicuously, but now she's a high-profile model, and he's like, she's not just some random girl that they'll have trouble finding history on. No, it's plastered all over the internet. So Light's luck that he had, you know, from a while back when he's like, God's on my side, I've got all the luck in the world. It seems like it's ran out until the very end of this episode when Rim's like, fine, I'll kill Elle. And then things change, right? Oh my god, I love this. He's like, no, that aside, I should think of a way to use Misa's eyes to kill Elle. If I just eliminate Elle. And that image of Elle in her eye, ooh, that's so creepy. Mm-hmm. And so then we go to the next morning. I figured, I like that we get this from his perspective, like a first-person perspective. The camera work is kind of odd where it like transitions to his perspective. And he's like, Sayu, can you keep this a secret from everybody? And the mom says, when he says keep it a secret from dad, the mom's like, okay. She's like, you don't want your father prying into your love life. She's like, I understand. You're a young man who's getting in a relationship. We don't want your dad prying. And she probably thinks Chief Yagami's a police officer, so he'll look into her. And she's like, I understand. That makes great alibi. Makes total sense. And Seiyu's like, I want my brother to keep dating her, so okay. And he's like, just keep it from everyone. And then he explains she's an up-and-coming model, and I don't want it to be problematic if they find out she's dating someone. So yeah, so it's a perfect alibi. Light has his family completely fooled. I mean, it all makes sense. There's nothing conspicuous or suspicious about that. And she's like, I'll keep it a secret for 5,000 yen. And he's like, And Ryuk just laughing, being like, you just keep piling on the lies, Light. You just keep making the web more complicated so you can keep up with it, right? So then we go to the university, and he's waiting on the message to arrive, and he said instead of going to the television station, it should be routed to task force headquarters. And so okay, at this point, I'm going to get a picture of this. At this point, Light knows that the video is going to the headquarters. He doesn't have to go there. He's not been asked to go there yet. He's not been asked to show up. His presence wasn't requested, right? But he says, I have to go to the headquarters in order to see Elle's reaction. Like Light wants to, it's a game. It's such a game between Elle and Light. And Light, he wants to see Elle's reaction. He doesn't have to go there. He could wait until they contact him, but he wants to show up and see how Elle's going to react. He wants to play the cat and mouse game. It's like, for someone that wants him dead, you sure are fine with just being around him while y'all are alive, you know, and not instead of plotting how Misa can get to him, you just show up so you guys can hang out, you know? And just that look on his face, and he's just distracted by it. But see, here's the thing. Light has the girlfriend, the fake girlfriend. She's like, Yagami. And she's like, you told me that you got with me, right? So he's like, yeah, I did. And she's like, that's why I'm sitting next to you in this lecture. And she's like, but, and he's like, yes. She's like, but you don't seem happy at all. You've been completely ignoring me. Completely ignoring you and thinking about Elle, huh? Basically. And he's like, that's not true at all. He's like, I was just thinking about the way everyone's going to be talking about us. Like, what a smooth talker. Like, he didn't look like that at all. He just smooth talking. He's like, I'm going out with you, the famous Ms. Toho University. I like that this guy, this guy in the front row, looks back to Light, like, what a bullshit. and they all the guys look over to her. He's like, to think that I'm going out with you, the famous Ms. Toho University. Here's the thing. Light cannot settle for second best. He can't settle for anything but the cream of the crop, right? So he could have found just any random girl to date and it not be conspicuous. But instead he found one of the most popular girls in school to date. It's like Elle. He's not interested in mediocre. They gotta be the best of the best. And that's why he loves Elle. I'm fully convinced at this point that Light may not realize it himself, but he is drawn to Elle. It's not love, but he's drawn to Elle, right? Because Elle's his only match in this. Like, intellect-wise, he's the only one that can match him. And so Light is drawn to him. And Elle is drawn to Light. So it's like... But yeah, these guys all look at him. And Ryuk's like, what bullshit. Like, when he's like, it's obvious you're really beautiful. And Ryuk's just laughing like, oh my god. And she's like... Please don't think about such things. I don't like being called Miss Whatever. She's kind of stuck up a little bit. And he's like, yeah, you're right. It's like, what's with this woman? She loves it. Light's like, what a charade. He's like, she likes me, calling her out and saying she's beautiful because it's me saying it. It's like, God, your ego, Light. And she kind of has an ego too. He's like, Miss Takata, let's just take things at our own pace. And she says, okay. Like, what a smooth, just gloss it over, Light. But there's the Mogi guy. The Mogi guy is watching them. Okay. And so he's like, oh, Light, good timing. He also looks so freaking cute. Look at him. Look at this bean. I'm going to take a picture of it. Look at that bean. He's so freaking cute. He's like, oh, good timing, Light. And he's like, oh. And I love that, there's the soft ambiance in the room. It's a contrast, right? Because I talked about it a few episodes ago, you have Light, who has it's the sun and the moon. It's the sun and the moon. You have Light, whose room has that blue fluorescent light to it that kind of looks like moonlight in his room. It's very blue tones and hues. And then you have Elle, who has this soft, warm lamplight that's like the sun. So it's like the sun and the moon. It's like, oh man. But yeah, because this room's so dimly lit with the soft ambiance. And he's like, that second message just arrived. He's like, let's listen to it together. And he's like, another one, that was sure fast. I'm like, oh my God. He's like, I think this is the last one. Well, take a look at this. And so then we get the message about everything. And so then I like that Elle has the donuts in front of him, like the tea and the coffee and like a whole dozen donuts. He's like, I feel that Kira and the second Kira have joined forces. And Light's like, yep, he figured it out. Oh my God. All these expressions. This episode has probably been my favorite episode to look at Light. Like, he looks so expressive in this episode. Oh, man. He's like, how do you know that they've joined forces? He's like, didn't you sense it? He's like, I thought you would get the same impression. So he's like, don't you? I feel like at some point, Elle in this might be a little bit suspicious of Light at this point. And if Elle suspects that he's Kira, I feel that he's like, hey, did you join up with a new friend? Did you get a new friend that's not me? It's like, it's like, I thought you get the same impression. And his eyes are like, have the dark circles, like he hasn't slept under them. It's like, first of all, his attitude towards meeting Kira has completely changed. And now he says he wants to punish criminals that Kira didn't punish in order to gain his acceptance. He's like, why didn't he do this before? Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, why, if Misa was trying to get Light's attention before, why didn't they punish criminals then? Like, something's changed, right? And so it would seem like they're just doing it now to prove their trust. And it seems like it's made obvious. Not only that, but it's an obvious thing to send to the police to, like, make them think that everything's, like, passed over. He's like, he probably never thought that far ahead. So it's likely he's working with Kira and was told to say that. Like Elle's figured it out. He figured out the video. And at this point, it's like Light sent that whole video to Elle in the first place just to see what his reaction would be, to see if he could figure it out. They've just been testing each other this whole time, and it's become like a game between the two of them, like a fun little game that they're like, oh, can you figure out what my next move is? Oh, I don't know. Can you do this? Well, if I figure this out, how are you going to respond to it? Like, it's just a game between them. And that's how Light's been viewing it. And he's like, he was also ordered to hide the fact that they're working together. He's like, I see. He's like, that probably means Kira isn't thinking about his actions very much. And Rick's like, And I like that Elle's like, yes. I mean, he's so cute, like he's licking the sugar off his fingers. Ridiculous. Did Kira encounter something he couldn't overcome? Yes! Elle has figured out that Kira is cornered by second Kira. That they were cornered and had to act out, right? Which Kira, like, Elle, he's probably using to scare us, making it obvious that he recruited the second Kira. The Union is really threatening. Elle has figured everything out. Elle has always, since the first time that Elle started deducing things about Light, he has been like 98% correct about everything, if not more. But he just doesn't have the substantial proof to show that it's true. He's made all these deductions that are on the nose, but he just doesn't have the means to prove that they're true. And that's the problem. There's no substantial evidence. This lessens the suspicion I had of Light. And I like that Chigagami's like, you don't suspect my son anymore? What? Why? What do you mean, Ryuzaki? And he says that if Light was Kira, then he wouldn't have sent it in a video like this. He would have tried to threaten me into appearing on television again, right? That would have been the case. He said, maintaining that lie that worked. What did he say there? So he says, he would have tried to lure me into appearing on TV again, maintaining that lie that they aren't working together. He would have placed all the responsibility on second Kira. And this is what he'd have him say. As he licks the donut. I stopped because Kira told me to. But I don't think that warning would come from the real Kira. Kira would be happy if Elle died. There's no way he'd stop me. As he licks the chocolate off the donut. So, Elle fully believes that the quote-unquote real Kira would stop at nothing to kill him. So yeah, this video was just like a tease. So he's like, why would he go through all those troubles just to send me like this thing to tease me? He's like, why wouldn't he just have the threat like before of me going on television to kill me? Why not go back to that? And that if you really want me dead, isn't that what you would have done? And he's like, yes. And then Light says, I would never do that if I were Kira. He's like, why? He's like, because I know your personality. This is almost like a confession. This is almost like a confession, right? He's like, I wouldn't have killed you that way, Elle. This is how I would kill you. He's like, I wouldn't kill you that way. He's like, I know your personality. He's like, Elle would never go on TV, no matter how. Like, this is the most complimentary that Light has gotten of anyone. Anyone. He's complimenting Elle. He's like, Elle would never go on TV, no matter how he was threatened. And we don't see Elle's face. Oh, and that line, that point here, he's like, he wouldn't want to die in someone else's place. Just sitting there holding the donut. So Light complimenting him. He says that Elle is smarter than that and would fight back. That Elle wouldn't just show up on TV. He wouldn't want to die in someone else's place. Oh, he would think of some way to escape. This is a damn confession. He's like, you wouldn't let yourself be cornered. He's like, you'd fight your way out because you're smart as I am. He's basically admitting that Elle is on the same level as Light. He's like, you'd think of some way to escape, wouldn't you? So we could keep playing with each other? Oh my God. And his eyes look red there. God, his eyes just looking so red there. Oh. And then Elle being like, you figured it out. And then he's like, you figured it out. You know me so well, Light. And so at this point, Chief Yagami breaks up this confession by saying, Light, stop saying if I were Kira. Which is so hard because he is. But Chief Yagami's like, I don't like it. He's like, I don't like you saying it. He says, I don't like hearing it, even if it's hypothetical. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Dad. He's like, but I want to tell Ryuzaki what I think. Like in this soft ambience and this soft light where it's just like literally the two of them unless Chief Yagami like butts in. What? And Chief Yagami's like, I have to pose the scenario hypothetically in order to solve this case quickly and to clear my name. Besides, it's because I'm not Kira that I can talk in that way. Which is so not true. And him putting all the extra sugar cubes in there. And he's like, you're right. You're not Kira. Rather, it would be a problem if you were Kira. This line. He's like, it would be sad if you're Kira. He says, because you're... I was like, what is this? What does this look? My first friend. Oh, I can't, y'all. His little frog face, where he's like, you're my very first friend. And Light's like, what? Oh my God, with his red eyes and everything, sparkling. His eyes are sparkling. His eyes did nothing for Misa, not a thing. For Elle to admit that they're friends, sparkle eyes, heart eyes, mother truckers. Look at that. Oh, and he just sips the coffee. He's like, yeah, Ryuzaki, I consider you a friend too. We have so much in common. Oh my God. And he's like, yeah. He's like, thank you. Oh, it's been lonely since you've been taking breaks from school. The way that he looks like a freaking shoujo protagonist. Like he just is gonna like just show up on his doorstep with a basket of flowers. Oh, like a bouquet of roses. Oh my gosh. I can't. I'm gonna take all the screenshots, so I hope y'all are ready. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's been lonely. I'd like to play tennis with you again. Oh, and his little face lighting up where he's like, let's play tennis. It's our version of chess. Show, you cannot do this to me. You can't do this to me. Nope. He's like, yes, by all means. Like this moment here where they're like just acknowledging each other. And he's like, and then Ryuk's like a freaking dog. He's like, friend, huh? Aren't you glad, Light? You got a friend? You guys are friends, right? And then Light passes back to his normal Kira self. He's like, that damn Ryuza. He makes it a front, like makes it go in one ear and out the other. He's like, that damn Ryuzaki immediately noticed the connection between Kira and second Kira. Like, Ryuk is trying to point out that, hey, you made a friend. You heartless sociopath. You made a friend. He wants to be friends with you. And all Light can think about, like a damn Greek villain, is that Ryuzaki saw through the tape. Of course he did. You were really obvious in that tape. Like, that's just... He's like, yeah, I mean, that... Compared to his previous works, I'm like, yeah, that was kind of obvious. He's like, I've got to eliminate him quickly. And Ryuk's like, oh, I see. Ryuk's like, you know, you have a chance at friendship. That's the sad part about this, is that if the stupid Death Note didn't exist, and Light didn't have it, and he, like, worked on the task force with L, solving crimes, they would be friends. They'd have a genuine friendship. And Ryuk's trying to be like, you have a chance of a genuine friendship with somebody, but the Death Note has just completely consumed him in that regard. This makes it all the more dangerous for me to see Misa. Speak of the devil! And she just leaps with her mini skirt, fishnets. I love Misa's outfit, by the way. Her leather outfit, I love it. She looks like Catwoman. That's why I want her and Elle to meet. She's got like the black jacket. I know she's like modeled after Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is modeled after her. Like it's like, well, you know, it kind of has that design. But her black outfit and everything, it kind of looks a little Catwoman-ish. It's like, I couldn't wait 2 weeks. I was about to go to your house. And God, she's like, and I love that Light is like, this is the first time I've really wanted to hit a woman. I'm like, oh my God, Light, no. Light just is so pissed at her. I'm like, oh, honey. Oh, buddy. He's like, She's like, I want to see you so badly. And like, there's people out watching them. And he's like, well, come over to my house. And she's like, okay. And it's just like, he loathes her. And she is in love with him. And then, of course, the one guy is like, man, another girl? And then the transition. And then, of course, the sister's like, I saw you in a whole bunch of magazines. And she's like, oh, hey, yeah, sorry for the intrusion. Look at this. And he's like, please get some tea ready, Mom. Also, I want to make note that Light, another sign that Light absolutely is not interested in Misa whatsoever. When they go to the room, it's all in like pitch darkness with that damn fluorescent light on. And Misa's like, do you just come in here creepily and like monologue to yourself? I love that she's like, And he's like, Rim, you're Misa's ally, aren't you? And she's like, yes, I've watched her many times from the Shinigami realm. And so she's like, I've developed a bit of affection for her. And Ryuk's like, affection, even though you're a Shinigami? So Ryuk is truly neutral. Which, again, Light doesn't exactly invoke the feelings of affection. Misa just loves him because she's kind of crazy and he's hot. Elle forms a genuine friendship with him because of their intellect and their connection with one another. That's a lie, according to Light, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then Rim actually has developed affection. Rim is like, yeah, I care about Misa. She's like, yeah, I developed an affection for her. You know, I get it. It's fine. I also want to make note. I want to make note. We'll talk about this. I'm going to make a note real quick about the music. I was thinking about Jealous, and so I'm going to make a note about the music here. We'll talk about it at the end of this. The music that was playing whenever Elle gave his confession that him and Light are friends. She said, I said I'd kill you if you tried to kill her. And he's like, does this mean that if Misa's happy, you'll feel fine? Like, if Misa's happy, you're okay? And she's like, yeah, I guess. I just don't want to see her unhappy. Rim's like, yeah, I don't know if I mean, her being happy is fine. I just don't want to see her be sad. Not much to ask, right? And when he pulled Misa to him, one, Light is way taller than Misa, which I had not noticed and is interesting. I thought he was going to be like, Misa's my girlfriend or something like that, but no. He says, Misa is in love with me, not you. And Rim's like, don't care. And she's like, Light. I thought for a second in this whole scene that he was going to kiss her. I thought for a second he was going to kiss her. And I was like, that seems like I could never picture Light kissing anybody in this series. So that's bizarre to me. But he didn't. He's like, would my happiness make you happy? And she's like, yes. I like that Ryuk's just over here like, where's this going? Where's this going? And she's like, yes. He's like, then could you ask Rim to kill Elle? And Ryuk's like, you're going to kill your only friend? You know? And this face, he's like, Rim wants you to be happy. If Elle catches one of us, we'll both be unhappy. And so Ryuk's like, like a Shinigami can't tell a person's name to someone who has a notebook. Okay, so, all right. A Shinigami can't tell a person's name to someone who has a notebook. So she can't tell them their names, right? But there's no restriction against Rim killing anyone. Oh, okay. So like Ryuk said way back in like the earlier episodes, he's like, I can't tell you any names that I see. That's not how this works. But Shinigami can be ordered to kill, or at least asked to kill. And Ryuk is not going to do that because Ryuk is true chaotic neutral. He's like, nope, not going to kill anybody for you. That's your own business. I'm just here to watch. But Rim is not Ryuk. He's like, if you kill Elle, I think I can love me some more, which is such bullshit. He's going to kill her. Like, And I'd be very grateful. Above all, it'll make us both happy. Like that little narrowing of his eyes. God, the lighting is so good in this scene. And she's like, Rim, I want Light to love me. Light and I will be grateful. That's the thing. It's like, Misa, girl, you can't see the writing on the wall. And he's got like both hands on her shoulders, like kind of possessively. It's like, ugh. But she wants Light to love her. But I'm like, girl, that is never going to happen. He hates you and does not like you at all. I'm like, he's using you. It's just so, I feel bad for Misa because I'm like, Light is never going to love you. That's not how this works. He doesn't like you. He's just using you as a means to an end. That would be my happiness. And I feel like Light maybe was expecting her to say no. And she was going to give a reason, right? Or maybe he wanted her to say yes, but it's like, it's sort of the opposite of you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And only now it's like, you don't know how you're going to miss something until it's like easily taken away from you. And there's a part of Light that I think whenever she didn't respond, his hand starts to drop away and he's like, oh, well then never mind. Like he just doesn't care. And then she's like, fine. And that turn when he's like, what? And she says, fine, Light Yagami, I don't like you. But even if this ends up lengthening your lifespan, I won't die. Oh, man. So this is interesting. If this ends up lengthening your lifespan, I won't die. So why would it lengthen his lifespan? Why would her killing Elle lengthen his lifespan? Humans don't gain anything. Don't gain any life from humans. That's what I wanted to talk about, is the idea of Light being a Shinigami. Is Light becoming a Shinigami. Way back at the beginning of the series, Ryuk's like, well, you're a better Shinigami than most people. You kind of are. You've got this death note. Aren't you kind of a Shinigami yourself? And Light's like, killing humans for human reasons is different than Shinigami. Is like, oh, my killing is different than yours. I'm like, is it? So when she says that, that's so weird. Why would it lengthen his lifespan? So, lengthen his lifespan. She says, I'm not going to die because I don't love you. She's like, but then the only way it would, because it would be saving Light. If Rim loved Light and killed Elle to save him, then that would cause her to die. One, she doesn't like Light, so it's not going to work that way. But two, Light's not in danger, so her just killing Elle doesn't really, it wouldn't kill her anyway, right? But yeah, the whole lengthening lifespan is like, it's like, I'll kill Elle for you. Elle means nothing to me. And that look on Light's face is the most haunting look. I'm like floored by that look. I want to get like, oh my God, I just want to get a little second there. Oh my gosh. It's just, because in that moment, it's like Elle didn't think she'd do it. Oh my God. That may be the thumbnail. That maybe the thumbnail is Light looking completely shocked that she agreed to kill him. Oh my God. And of course, Misa's like, all right, thanks, Rim. Thank you, Rim. And Ryuk's like, oh shit, she's actually going to do it. And he's looking at Light. And she's like, that's my Rim. And, oh. And he says, Elle will die this easily? Yeah, because that's the thing, right? Light's been talking this whole series about killing Elle, and he's been just brooding, or like, I'll wait till, just you wait till I kill Elle, just you wait till I get him. But it's never happened. They always just go back and forth over and over again, and it never leads to that. And it's fun, and Light likes it, even though, fun in that people are dying, but Light enjoys it. And so the idea that, the scenario in Light's head that one, he won't be able to go back and forth with Elle again, compounded with the fact that Elle has made this proclamation that Light's his only friend, made alongside the fact that if he kills Elle, he's stuck with Misa forever, and she's just going to keep trying to convince him that that he loves her. That sounds like a nightmare. But Light he couldn't pass it up, trying to just like one up Rim and be like, oh, well, why don't you just kill Elle then for me? And she's like, okay, cool. And he's like, oh no, I didn't mean it. His expressions, and Ryuk noticing the expression, being like, oh, you don't really want Elle to die, do you? That, oh my God, this just got so much more complicated, but Light, he doesn't want Elle to die that easily. I feel like he wants Elle to die eventually, but not just like this. No, because then he's just stuck with Misa. But what I was wanting to get at is that the music that was playing way back in the confession that Elle has that Light is his friend is the same music that's playing when Jealous kills to save Misa. So I was like, I've wondered if Light is going to end up becoming a Shinigami since episode like 2 or 3. I've been like, is Light going to become a Shinigami by the end of this? Is this kind of like the point? Because it kind of is. He's like a pseudo Shinigami now. Anyway, what if Light saves Elle and kind of goes against the grain? Would Light die? Would Light give up his life to save Elle? I don't think so at this point. But like the seed's been planted that he doesn't want Elle to die so easily. And that's the thing. Light wants to be the one to tell Elle that he's Kira in the end and kill him that way. If Rim just kills him off, then it's like, what the heck, right? Oh my God, I don't know. How is he going to stop? How's he going to take this back? How's he going to be like, no, wait a minute, Rim. Whoa, hold on. We need to set this up. How's he going to stop her from just going to Grim Reaper and showing up and killing Elle just like that? How's he going to do that? The fact that at this point, we're not even halfway through the series, but Elle has basically came out and said, you're my first friend, and I care about you, Light. And Light's realizing, I'm not ready for him to die yet, even though he's been saying it for the last 12 episodes. Y'all, I'm gonna keep my shipper goggles off as best as I can, but Light's face at the end of this was just absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So there's that. I don't want any spoilers, but I'm very, very, very curious to know your thoughts down below. I'm like, would Light die to save Elle? I don't think so, but this is the first time in the entire series that Light has shown an emotional reaction to someone's life being threatened. The only other time he's shown anywhere close to this was his dad having the heart attack. That's it. Like his dad having the heart attack, he was freaked out about a little bit. We got to see that with him. But here, I think it's almost more emotional than his dad. When he's like, oh, you mean my rival that I've been like Sherlock and Moriartying with for the last 12 episodes could possibly die? Well, where's the fun in that? I didn't think that you'd say yes. Like I was just joking, you know? But he put it on so thick in the moment. I'm like, how are you going to take that back, Light? Oh my God. I'm terrified for Elle now. I was worried about him at first, but now I'm terrified. Oh no. So, yeah. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, but I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. I'll be back very soon to see how our boy Light deals with this in episode 15 of Death Note. Bye.